Good afternoon. We're going to call the community safety meeting to order. It's Tuesday, December 10th, 4 o'clock. We're in the Anderson room. We have a motion to adopt the minutes of the meeting. All in favor? Thank you. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? I don't know. You're usually the first to press your button no matter what, so I just figure you're about to light up about something. Okay, I digress. So presentation from Brendan McLaughlin, Program Manager, Emergency Planning, and Chief Jim Wishlove from Fire Rescue. Sorry, here, I'll even turn on your microphone so that...
And good afternoon to your committee. Thank you very much for letting us present. We have a short presentation this afternoon for you, giving you an update on the status of the emergency management program here in the city. And after the short presentation, we're open to any questions from yourself or your committee. Just for those of you who may not have met him, this is Brendan McLaughlin, the program manager responsible for the emergency programs branch and leading that team here in the city. And if you're open to it, I'll turn it over to Brendan.
Thank you very much. So as a quick recap, here we have a representation of sort of the underlying legislation that exists for the reason of emergency programs. The provincial legislation at the top there is the Emergency and Disaster Management Act that mandates that each local authority is to have an emergency management organization. Below that is the regulations, which are currently in development, and they provide additional clarification on the legislation, and they're going to be phased in over the next several years, as the Act actually was recently just brought into place in November of 2023. Locally, we have our Emergency Management Bylaw, which authorizes the elements of the emergency management organization, the authorities for decision-making, emergency financial authorities, and who is responsible for delivering these effects. Emergency programs represents the subject matter experts to ensure that the strategic direction stipulated by the EMO is carried out, and which is done through the operational documents, plans, programs, etc., managed by emergency programs. So, what is emergency management? There are 4 risk-based functions of emergency management, often referred to as pillars, or phases of the emergency management continuum. These 4 functions of emergency management are interconnected and interdependent in a system from prevention and mitigation to preparedness, response, and recovery. This system shows that an effective emergency management system ensures the prevention and preparedness efforts are in place to respond to and recover from an incident. In the center of the wheel are the main elements that influence the development of a strategic emergency management plan. We as emergency programs write and implement or support the implementation of the plans and activities to enable those functions. So a recap of some of our initiatives since 2021. For prevention and mitigation, we had the transition of public education to community engagement. Essentially, the former model of public education was basically based on one person trying to target 230,000 people, which was seen as somewhat untenable. And so we're now, while we're doing that, concurrently we're trying to leverage up a more strategic approach to engage organizations and essentially create ambassadors to try and deliver that message for us and take that workload down from the public engagement coordinator. We created the event and safety security template, which is a way to standardize some of our safety and security plans for public events within the city, make it more reference friendly, and also provide some basis and starting points for other agencies and departments within the city to know some of the common factors and elements that need to be there to provide for the safety and security. And we're continuing on our update of our hazard risk and vulnerability assessment. Under preparedness, we developed a heat response plan following the 2021 heat dome. And we've also developed a staff training program for emergency management from frontline to EOC staff. So far this year, we've had over 200 attendees in total to various sessions that we've provided on that. We've been leveraging grant funding for providing supplies for the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, our emergency support services, generating a heat map for the city, and Indigenous engagement. Community education initiatives on our website, organized seminars, presentations, and this year we have held over 12 public engagement events, reaching approximately 5,860 people thereabout. Our emergency notification system has been streamlined for the sign-up process. And we have an emergency food program for critical staff to essentially provide for frontline staff within the city up to 2 weeks of food. We have attended multiple collective training events with YVR, Fortis BC, the Vancouver Airport Fuel Facilities Corporation, EMCR, Metro Vancouver, the military, and some others. Under response, we responded to a few extreme weather events. We provided information coordination for the Chilcotin flood, Mitchell Island flood, and cold weather. And we have also provided emergency support services service delivery. Approximately 205 people since 2021 have been supported through this program, and we've also implemented a 2-hour response timeline from point of initiation to delivery of services. I'll speak to ESS shortly. We've also coordinated support for neighboring municipalities, providing ESS supports to the City of Vancouver, or supporting them rather, the Abbotsford Flood, Vancouver's HRVA, and preparations for the FIFA 26 World Cup, and ESS deployments provincially. Locally, we have provided or supported the city with the safety and security planning for the Salmon Fest, Maritime Fest, Public Works Open House, Halloween, etc. Under recovery, since 2021, we have supported the recovery of response costs back to the city to the tune of around $443,000. Roles and responsibilities. So during a response, Mayor and Council have a critical role as the policy group. They provide the strategic direction to the Emergency Operations Center and implement emergency response mechanisms, which were also brought in through the Emergency and Disaster Management Act in November of last year. This includes declaring a local state of emergency, interim bylaws, delegating authorities and authorizing emergency expenditures, leveraging higher governmental resources, and acting as the public primary facing representatives of our local authority. The EOC below them serves to coordinate service delivery, overseen by senior city staff, and ensures this strategic vision of the policy group is implemented, and serves as the information hub to keep Mayor and Council informed. The EOC is maintained by emergency programs, and we also serve as the subject matter experts. But staffing the EOC for response operations can and often does require a whole-of-city approach, which includes both internal city staff and external partners. And below this, you see the response agencies and partners common with delivering our emergency services. Speaking to our external partners, here's a snapshot. These are some of the key partners that we engage with on a routine basis throughout, either through response coordination, exercises, professional organizations, and regional planning. Relationship building and maintenance is a fundamental factor to successful responses, as it is often the quality of the relationships that determines the quality and efficiency of the Emergency Operations Center. The Emergency Operations Center, this serves as a coordination center for analyzing the situation, providing situation reports, developing response plans, documenting the rationale for decisions, tracking financial expenditures, and planning for the recovery. Emergency Operations Centers are both physical and virtual. They're really more of a theoretical concept, not quite tied to a specific piece of property, but we still have a primary EOC located here in City Hall, a backup EOC location at Canby Fire Hall 3, and with the virtual EOC, we have a program called Web EOC that can support that. The EOC can be staffed by a single individual for smaller responses, but can expand to include many staff from multiple city departments to fulfill the functional roles. This includes representatives from the response agencies in the operations section, legal representatives, logistics and procurement staff, financial and administration staff, planning staff, safety, communication specialists, etc. And in addition to kinetic response operations and maintaining a 24/7 duty officer, emergency programs also provides the emergency support services for more routine events. The Emergency Support Service Program, or ESS, is delivered by us on behalf of the province, and it provides up to 72 hours of funding support for food, clothing, and lodging for displaced community members. We have improved on our response by establishing and maintaining a 2-hour service delivery benchmark from notification to delivery of those services. And the Canadian Red Cross, led by emergency programs, is currently contracted to support our efforts by providing volunteers to help deliver these services. Especially important for larger events that require establishing a reception center and providing group lodging over an extended period of time. Maintaining skill sets is a critical component, and to that end, EP participates and conducts regular exercises. These can take the form of tabletop discussion-based exercises, most often employed during plan review and validation processes, activation exercises that involve full or partial EOC activations, and full-scale exercises that involve response agencies conducting live drills. Most recently, we've participated in exercises with YVR, simulating aircraft emergencies, Fortis BC with gas leaks and internal activations with city staff, Metro Vancouver Regional District with emergency water supply, to name a few. We have also created and delivered a training program for internal and external staff where we've delivered emergency management training, and we'll be building upon that to enhance the city's ability to respond. We're also working towards formalizing a more cyclical exercise schedule based on a 3-year program, starting with individual skills, moving on to collective skills, and culminating in a full-scale exercise. However, we also have to indent for operational responses, which, while disrupting the schedule, provide valuable real-world experience, allowing us to validate and/or adjust our practices. Recent examples include the Abbotsford flood, supporting EMCR during wildfires, including mass evacuations, the Chilcotin flood, Mitchell Island flood, and other extreme weather events. So our current direction, where are we at? Currently, we are reviewing and updating our activation and response procedures, our all hazards approach. The current operating environment requires a greater emphasis on the ability to devise and deliver comprehensive response plans, coordinating multiple agencies and resources across a broad spectrum of modalities. Upon completion, we will turn to updating and validating our hazard-specific plans and our hazard risk and vulnerability assessment. Concurrent with delivering personal preparedness initiatives, we are developing programs that target a broader, more community-based approach to foster greater resilience amongst Richmond's neighborhoods. We're in the process of engaging with the Sea Island Community Association as part of a pilot project to establish a framework for a resilient community in a box. This will be a simple yet easily adoptable program that promotes community preparedness through education, mutual support, and establishing key points of contact and standard response protocols during an emergency. We'll then take the learnings of this project and apply them to other communities with the ultimate goal of citywide adoption. And as part of our 3-year response cycle, or 3-year readiness cycle, we're providing individual initiation training and continuation training, like such as ICS 100 through 400, or the Incident Command System, emergency operations essentials, and activation exercises wherein we review our established plans to ensure currency, relevancy, utility, and efficiency. And then finally, as a capstone of the training cycle, upon completion of the initial and collective, we'll collaborate with partners to validate and ensure symmetry of execution, and that we remain able to work together in a complementary fashion, share lessons learned, and ensure familiarity with local operating procedures and personnel, and that the application of our response remains relevant to the operating environment on the ground. Chief?
So just to wrap it up, thank you. The mandate of the Emergency Programs Branch is actually quite broad. The bylaw supports that. The newly released Provincial Act helps give us the authority to do this work. And so to close off here, we just want to explain maybe 2 really key pieces that we promote into our public outreach program, and we'll ask for your support if you're not already doing it. One would be to sign up for and tell any member in the community to sign up for Richmond BC Alert or richmond.ca Alert. You can do that through the My Richmond web portal or by reaching out to emergency programs and having somebody from Brennan staff walk people through it. That allows us to communicate directly with members of the public during any type of an event. We can also strategically specify who's going to receive a bit of information. We can highlight a community versus the entire city. We can contact certain individuals or demographics through that portal. The other piece is through the public website, the city's public website, and also Richmond Fire's public website. We have an emergency programs page with all of this information that you see over on the right of that screen under the Stay Informed tab. And so that'll walk people through how to subscribe to Richmond BC Alert. It'll give people information on how to create a home 72-hour resilience kit, other pieces that you can do to protect yourself and prepare for an emergency, how to be aware of an emergency, who to reach out to in case of an emergency, best practices, and also how to book any member of Brennan's team for a presentation, such as for a strata or a business or a group of people, a neighborhood. We can do all of that. And so I'll ask for some help in those 2 particular areas to be promoting those 2 pieces. Those are really central to a neighborhood and a family's ability to be self-reliant during the initial stages of an emergency. And on that, I'll ask if there's any questions or if anybody needs any explanation on that.
Councillor Day?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Years ago, we went to a really large exercise in the hotel on Sea Island, and all of the different groups were wearing, special colored T-shirts. They could all recognize each other. It was a really interesting drill to look at. We were lucky enough to be guests there. When's the last time you did a full-scale drill like that?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I can maybe let Brennan fill in the details, but we haven't conducted a very large-scale drill like that since the COVID pandemic. Part of the strategy since Brennan and his full team have come on board is for us to promote the foundation of the program and really build a lot of resilience within the city staff, our regional partners, and also to do a deeper learning about how capable our partners are before we put that time and effort into that really large-scale exercise. The exercise cycle that Brennan spoke about earlier on in the presentation is on a cycle. And so we, through Brennan's team and some of my senior team, participate in up to 20 different exercises every year. For us to invite this group and other senior members of the team, I'd want to make sure we plan that properly and make really efficient use of your time as well as very senior city staff time. We can forecast that we plan to hold one next year. However, I'll have to leave some space for anything that comes at us as far as a regional emergency or a weather-related emergency to have to save space for that.
And will this presentation be available to council or on the website?
We're happy to make it available to council and members of your committee.
Is it something we can share with the public?
It is, absolutely,
okay. Yeah. I think that'd be fabulous. Thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah, thanks very much. I have a number of questions. Thanks for the presentation, a good presentation. And I too would like to see this be presented to council and as soon as possible, not later, but sooner. I think this kind of information that the public needs extreme. I just have a couple of questions and a comment. And we can never be totally prepared no matter what it is. Okay, we know that, but we can mitigate. So my question to you would be, given all this and all the great work's being done with some of the issues, what is, we think, the worst disaster that we can have that we will all be involved in on the whole island, whole two islands? Is an earthquake probably, right? Mm-hmm. Am I wrong on that through the chair? Is that the number one thing? We're not going to burn down like Stephen did in 1918 or whatever. It'll be probably an earthquake.
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, that's a good estimate. A really significant earthquake would be significantly difficult to manage through. However, the way that our program and our response is currently set up and structured is that we assess, first off, what the situation is, what the damage is, what the needs are, and then immediately start responding to what those are. And so depending on the size of or the magnitude of an earthquake, the magnitude of a problem, equally problematic would be a couple of weeks without energy in the city with, especially during the winter time. And so we would respond to that, we would assess, and then we would start to tactically respond to that to make sure people and facilities and management of the city is looked after. And so it would be unfair for us to sit here and say this is going to be the worst type of a disaster versus that.
Well, okay. And I guess Councillor Liu and I took part in community engagement many years ago, well, not many years, a number of years ago. Councillor Au and I were at a workshop the other day, which was put on over here at the college. And it was interesting to be able to sit through it and feel what the residents were feeling. And they want to be prepared. And it was a good feeling. I mean, it was a rah-rah thing, if you wish. And I guess my question on this, and I don't want to overreact because we've got a lot of good things in place, but I think we need to move ahead at what I always call the Richmond pace, not anybody else's pace. We don't wait for anybody else to do things and take the lead. And I think more of those that can be put through community associations all over the city, Hamilton, Sea Island, wherever, are extremely valuable. And there were, I think, Jack, what was it, 30, 35 people there, whatever, 2 presenters doing the show together, and I thought it was extremely good, and I hope we do it. One of the questions was, and you brought it up, and I asked the question, is it creating your 72-hour resistance kit? They wanted to know about that. What is a 72-hour resistance kit? I have a kit at home. I have a generator at home ready, but they wanted to know what it was and where do I get it? I'm not going to be able to get a quart of milk and a pound of cheese and put it in my fridge and get it me through. What is it that I need? My bags of water, my small ration, whatever. But where do we get it? Unfortunately, we weren't able to get that answer there. Okay, so I throw that back at you. We should be finding that out, where people can get what the checklist will include, and you can create your own and be able to check it off, and you can get it here, there, and everywhere. We should be a resource to our people on that. So on that, I'm happy with what we got. I think we need to move. The other question I have, and I will say this as an individual counselor, how much money are we putting into this program? And how much money do we need? That's my question I have, because I want to know. I'm not worried about what the cost is. I want to know what we need to be adequately prepared. And then those of us around the table that say views will make that decision to make sure we have resources in the right place. Because I think we need to put more resources in this area. Thank you. That's okay, you're going to get some money. Checks in the mail.
Thanks for that. Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, I can address one of those points for sure. The 72-hour kit, or making sure your home is resilient. Through the public website, through the RFR website, there will be links to a number of different resources, home checklists on how to create that kit, and you know, to be really transparent. Most homes or houses, families currently would have food in their pantry. They would have medications in their home. They would have clothes in their closet. They would have a pair of shoes in their closet. And so the 72-hour kit that you would need are typically those types of items, perhaps in a carryable format. And so depending on whether somebody is a single person living on their own in a small apartment, or a family of 5 with pets and some particular needs for some of their family members, the makeup of those kits would differ quite significantly, and that checklist would cover that. And again, if anybody that you're talking, any of your constituents or any members of the public were curious about that, they can reach back through the public website, through the RFR public website, and ask the question. They can phone the front line at the RFR Fire Hall. They can connect with emergency programs through the website. There's a number of different avenues they can reach out to us, and we're happy to schedule a session with them, to speak with them one-on-one, or meet with them as a group, or whatever it takes for them to get that information.
Okay, and last comment. I'd like to see this material translated in Cantonese and Punjabi. We were out there, and we happened to have Ken Tung there, who happened to be, I think many of you know Ken Tung, there ready to be able to translate and get the real meaning of what the presenter, I think it was Joanne, was presenting. She did a good job, but he was there to back it up, and it was a better job.
Of course.
I think I'd like to see this, whatever we can do in terms of translation on the website, whatever. And as I say, if it costs, then we can deal with that issue at our level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Heed?
Yes, just before I get into what I wanted to talk about, just mentioning on the kits. We have been advocating for people to have kits for years and years. Let the fact remain, a lot of people aren't going to have kits. When the disaster hits, and this is what I'm going to ask you, is do we have areas where we've got prepackaged kits for people to go to in the local community? Because they're not going to have the kits. You know, I'm sure if you did some assessment, I have a kit from St. John's. It's about 10 years old. Well, I don't know if it's good or not, but the fact remains is maybe we should start looking at this a bit differently. Maybe we should have, prepackaged kits available to go when the disaster hits, when the earthquake hits. Something that we're going to have to think outside the box because people aren't going to have them. That's just as simple as that. Under the provincial act that we have in place, and there is this, let's talk about the extreme end, an earthquake. The earthquake is just not going to hit Richmond alone, okay? It's going to hit the entire area. Under the act, what is the chain of authority under there? Like, we understand the chief, we understand the city manager, and the mayor have the authority for the Richmond area. But if we're talking about a larger event, we're talking about Metro Vancouver, we're talking about provincially, we're talking about the need for urban search and rescue, which hopefully one day we'll have our own team. What is the chain of authority under that act?
Through the chair, Councillor. I can speak to how to access those resources. The chain of authority under a declared state of emergency, as we experienced during COVID, was the city had declared a state of emergency. Numerous cities throughout the region and across Canada had declared local states of emergency. And then the provinces waded in and declared an overarching state of emergency and took responsibility for the coordination of strategic resources in those regions. I would suspect if it's a large enough event, that would occur again. And they do have the authority to make those statements. We would work with the regional and the provincial emergency operations center to make sure that we're receiving whatever resources we need if we weren't able to field those resources ourselves internally here. You spoke about a search and rescue, heavy urban search and rescue, light urban search and rescue. Again, we're working with our training program internally in RFR to bring that dynamic into our staff on a more widespread basis. If we needed to, we could reach out to the task force one that I think you're familiar with through Vancouver. There is the second task force that's located in Alberta that may be more readily available if Vancouver's used up or unable to attend. Locally, again, if all of the staff that are on duty are trained to do that kind of work, they would be prioritized based on our assessment of what the needs are at the time.
Yeah, hopefully when we have ours, and I'm being optimistic, our USAR team stood up, that we don't become a national team, because you know what happens, and you know that it has to be approved by the federal government on the national team. And the reason why I ask those questions is I'm familiar with this from a little bit of time ago, and I knew who the ultimate authority was in the province. I'm just wondering under the new act whether that had actually changed. So, but if you could get, just a memo back to us on that, I'd really like to know, and I think it'd be very helpful if we knew what the chain of authority was for a major disaster. As far as the urban search and rescue, Chief, you and I have talked about this previously, and Brendan, I know you're working feverishly on the emergency management side of it, but when, we've got to take it off the tabletop, and when the disaster hits, we're going to need to make sure that the resources are there on the ground, qualified, ready to go for our community, because I'm sensing if it hits the Lower Mainland, if it hits Metro Vancouver, you're going to be out on your own. So, thank you.
Councillor Wolf?
Thank you. A few questions. I'm not sure, are you able to access the slides again? Or
Pardon me?
are you able to access the slides again? Yeah. The one that was called exercises, it was like a 3 back maybe. It was, my question about that one is the Emergency Operations Center. You mentioned that yeah, that one there. What's the picture on the left? Which location's that?
Next door.
Oh, that's the one at City Hall. So the one at Cambie, that one, that's not pictured, right? The one on the right is at the airport? The far right?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, the one on the right was taken as part of a participation with Fortis BC. That's at their headquarters.
Oh, okay. So I just recall when I used to volunteer at the Richmond General Hospital, they have a kind of command center room up high as well. And then at the airport, I thought they had one as well, which I thought kind of looked like that one. So those two are not included in yours? You said the Canby Fire Hall, the City Hall, and then the virtual one. Is that correct? Okay. Then there's a picture of a whole bunch of logos, if you could go to that one. I don't know, maybe this can come in a memo, like what are all of those? Because I know most of them, but there's a few that I don't know. And so I don't know if you could provide a list of all those other response partners and like what is the connection besides them being on the Richmond map? Is that something you could provide?
I could ask, through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I can ask Brendan to translate what some of the symbols are, but the logos on the left that have attachments to the map are regional, local partners that we've actually exercised and participated in training, learning, tabletop exercises, responses with in the past 3 years at least. The folks over on the right are people that we regularly connect with. We discuss operational plans, but we actually haven't deployed or done full-time practices with at this point.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. A couple of other questions through the chair. The food supply, so there's a 2-week food supply. Is that, I'm just curious, like when it gets close to expiry, before it gets expired, do you hand it over to the food bank or food hub to be shared? Or does it all just get expired and then get composted?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, the current inventory of emergency food that we have is actually a 10-year food supply, so it hasn't expired yet. We are looking at earlier than 10 years to recycle it and potentially get 2 more years out of it, which we're happy to share out at that point. I can't guarantee how appetizing it would be, but.
Right, yeah, military rations, yeah. Second, running low on time here, but how do we get 200,000 people off the island if it's flooded and we can't use the bridges in the tunnel? Is it chauffeuring small boat, getting people off, or is there some blow-up temporary structure?
Be faster to drain the island.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, there's certainly that would be an extreme scenario. Again, it would depend on how many people needed to be moved and to where, the scope of the issue, the length and duration of the issue. So there are, in our flood mitigation strategy, we have extreme opportunities to enact resources to assist with that. What we've learned in some of the more recent flooding events that we've had here is that twice in every 24 hours the waters recede and we're left on dry land again. And so depending on the time that the event happens in that cycle, we may be 1 to 12 hours away from dry land again. And so to enact a plan to have to remove every 200,000 people, as you say, out of the island, that would be an extremely heavy logistical event to do, and we may not opt to do that right off the bat.
For sure. I noticed your image there on the lodging and looked like a school gym, and most school gyms are at ground level. And so if there is flooding, then they're probably not going to have any lodging potential in there because it's going to have sewage water and chemical water up and down those walls. Anyway, just consideration. And then the heat mapping, I remember that was exciting when you talked about it about a year or two ago. Is there anything there publicly available yet?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we're actually just wrapping up the final report for that.
Okay, great, thanks. And then my final question is through the chair, the River Forecast Center, for flood information, that's what we rely on. Is it suitable for Richmond? Like we just had that major bomb cyclone off the side and there was a big storm surge and then we got the king tides. Like, do we need to give more instruction to the River Forecast Center to give us better useful data when predicting floods, or is it does it combine all of that for us?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I'll let Brendan fill in any gaps here, but we communicate with the River Forecast Center depending on the season, sometimes daily, sometimes twice a day. And so they have flood prediction modeling that they run the formulas on a number of times a day. And then during coordination calls or an extreme event, if something is needs to be issued in awareness, they will reach out through a number of different communications avenues. So at this point, I'm confident that the information we're getting from the River Forecast Center is accurate and timely. We also, again, have worked really hard to establish that ongoing relationship, so we have regular communications network with that group. And typically, this isn't a guarantee for every time, but we are at the far end of that flood problematic area. And so the areas that would be first notified that the floodwaters are really high is much further east on the Fraser River. And so quite often we have anywhere from 3 to 4 up to 10 to 12 hours notice that there's going to be a problem heading down. And so we are very fortunate in our geographic location in that, and also in the regular communications forums that we hold with that group.
Good. Okay, thanks, that's all.
Councillor Galanders.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation and great questions from everybody. Just a couple questions about the alert, sort of on the same lines of what we were just talking about, mapping flood locations and stuff like that. But let's say there was a massive earthquake. Let's say it happened right now while we're here, and then like we're signed up for the alerts. Well, we would be here with you, but you know what I mean. Anyway, would the alerts say sort of some broad direction on, so everyone should stay where they are right now, and then sort of say, okay, now you can make your way home, but don't use the roads, you can walk, or like, would it say anything like that?
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, it could say all of that,
Yeah.
and it would be very specific and directive as to what is happening. Generally, we'd explain this is the situation. If it was a particular area, we would give direction to those people in that area, stay put, move to another area, or we're coming to get you. We can tailor the information to any of that. And through Richmond Alert, you can opt to receive that information to any number of cell phones, your home phone, email, whatever your preference is. And so you can get that information when you're at home, not at home, anywhere.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. So on that first slide, you meant it was richmond.ca/alert, but then it also said sign up through your My Richmond account. But is that the same thing?
It is the same thing.
But then you also said, this is what we want you to do, these two things to help support. What were the two things again? What's the difference?
Thank you. Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Galanders, the one thing is to sign up and advise everybody you know to sign up for Richmond Alert. The other piece is the push people towards the Richmond Fire Rescue website, where you can find out information on how to build your 72-hour kit, other linked information that we update regularly on emergency programming, emergency planning, where the next public information session is going to be held. Sign up for some of the sessions like Councillor McNulty was mentioning. And so that portal there through the website is actually really rich for a lot of detail and information. So that was the second part.
Just one last question. Is there anything else that we can do from the city to get people to sign up? Like, is there a cell phone push we can do to phone numbers that we know are registered in Richmond to say sign up now for this or anything like that?
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, we do currently take advantage of, we'll call it strategic opportunities, when there is either some information being pushed out about Earthquake Preparedness Day. We'll do a press release, information through the RFR Public Outreach Education Team, as well as the Emergency Programs Team. And so we take advantage of those opportunities and work with corporate communications on that already.
Yeah.
Again, though, we're happy to entertain a request for information from anybody at any time.
Yeah, because then maybe if there was a an event that was publicized that, you know, everybody who's signed up for the Richmond Alert is going to get a test, and people start talking about it, and then people will want to sign up. You know, that word of mouth will start to snowball if it's publicized that everyone who signs up is going to get an alert or something as a test, like we all got with our national alerts. But thank you.
Councillor Au?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, and I think this is very timely. I think for whatever reasons, people seem to be very nervous right now about a major disaster that could happen at any time in Richmond or in the Lower Mainland. So I think that's why when that presentation was made a few weeks ago, good attendance and people asked lots of very interesting questions. Personally, you know, I've been involved in major disaster relief twice internationally. One 1999, 25 years ago, in Taiwan, after a major earthquake. I went with a medical team with the Richmond Health Department nurses and some doctors. And then we went 1 week after the earthquake in Taiwan. In 2008, there was a major earthquake in China. Again, I went with the NGO to a month after the earthquake, and then we were there to do some assessment and, you know, the long-term relief, especially in the mental health area. So I have some kind of, you know, experience with, I mean, the after a major disaster, you know, what could be the situation. So for that reason, I wanted to ask a few questions. Number one, the benchmarking. Now, I think the plan is very good, but is there any kind of established standard to measure how well we are doing in, you know, in preparation and to monitor the progress? I don't know whether or not you can say, oh, you know, we are well prepared, you know, moderately prepared, or, you know, we are not well prepared. So any kind of benchmarking that you can rely on for some measure progress?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, I can speak to two pieces on that. One would be the United Nations Sendai framework, and that's an acronym, which is basically a risk management structure for approaching very strategic emergencies. And so our program here in Richmond is based upon the Sendai framework, and more Richmond specific, of course, with our unique location, geography, neighborhoods, and all of that. So we do follow that as a best practice. The other piece is that with the newly released Provincial Act, there's some expectation there on Richmond as a municipality that we have certain pieces in place. One is a bylaw, another is a working EOC, a mass communications platform, an outreach program, those kind of things. And so those are loose but benchmarks for your emergency program. We meet all of them plus exceed in a lot of other areas as well.
Oh, very good. It's good to know that. Now, second thing is about communication. Again, after a major disaster, communication is very important. People need to get the information they need. You mentioned about My Richmond Alert. Do you know the penetration rate right now? So how many people in the community have signed up for that?
Through the chair to Councillor, I'd have to check because those numbers change month to month with new signups and all that. So I don't have a number for you right now, but I can certainly let you know.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I think we need to encourage people to sign up and also find ways to help them sign up. Maybe, you know, when they apply for a library card, you know, there's a message saying that, okay, do you want to register as well? Or people signing up for the the sports program. Again, you know, we can give them a reminder, you know, have you signed up for My Richmond Alert? So I think that the more we can penetrate into the population, I think the better we are going to be. Thirdly, you know, let me see. Okay, talking about those preparation kits, and again, we need to be very clear and simple, you know, so that people can really follow. You know, you just say 22 hours of supply. I mean, probably they don't know what that means. So I think, you know, something very simple, easy to follow. And I also remember that when I was working for Vancouver Coastal Health, each staff got a package in the office. And the reason was that in case anything happened, that we cannot leave the office, we got sufficient, or we got some supply, to survive. So again, I don't know if this can be implemented. First of all, I don't know if they're still doing that. But second, can we consider having some kind of supply like that in the city and for staff, especially those who have to be on duty?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, I'm not sure the exact span of this, but through our partners in Public Works at RFR, I presume the RCMP as well, that we have enough food and water and kits for the people who are on duty to operate for up to 2 weeks. Okay. And so, we regularly review, again, the dates, best before dates on that equipment and food, and make sure that our numbers are accurate, depending on, who's at work and how many people are in and out of the office. So we do review that program quite regularly as well as part of one of our emergency response plans.
Very good. Yeah, I remember that when I was with the health department, we got a package underneath our table. So anything happens and we cannot go home, we can still carry on. Now, volunteers, and again, from my experience in visiting those places that experienced disaster, I think if I compare the experience in Taiwan and in China, the big difference was the use of volunteers. In the case of Taiwan, they have well-trained volunteers. And I was told that after the earthquake hit, the volunteers got dispatched within 7 minutes, which I think a very, very high standard. Whereas in China in 2008, they did not have that kind of volunteers to mobilize. So how many volunteers do we have right now in the city? And who are responsible for training them? Again, I remember that some years ago, we in the city, we had a team of trained volunteers. And Ken Tang, which Bill mentioned earlier, was one of those experienced volunteers. So what is happening in this area?
Through the chair to Councillor, I'll speak about Mr. Tang. He still is volunteering. We partner with him, and he's been very helpful in opening some of those doors and doing a lot of the translation work for us in that area. So we deeply appreciate him. Currently, we do not control a dedicated group of volunteers here in the city just for our plan. However, we are, as we've mentioned before, working with, and we're using Burkeville as a litmus test here to bring that entire neighborhood up to a high level of community resilience, and therefore that entire community would help each other out during any type of situation. We'll take that model and move it to, perhaps Hamilton, Steveston, Brickhouse, and use those learnings moving forward in order for the entire city to be neighborhood and community based on that. Those people then, in effect, become localized volunteers with their neighbors that know what people have at home, whether they're at home or not, if they need help. That, as we've looked at some large-scale disasters in the globe recently, has been one of the high achievements for those people to be really successful in recovering quicker. Secondarily to that, we have been working with a number of the dedicated community groups locally, and I'll say, one of the Marine Search and Rescue groups, we just met with them again this week, and continued on with that relationship that should we have to access them for something different than their normal dynamic, they're open to that. And so there's people that are already coordinated, trained, organized, have leadership, and are open to working with us in those times of need. And part of our plan moving forward is actually to bring them into more and more exercises regularly and participate in share training activities with them. And so that is our approach to working with community volunteers. They're already established, they're already organized, they're already dedicated. We feel that's a very positive way of accessing volunteerism here in the city.
Okay, my last question. There are two questions also being asked by the public to me. For example, they said that in many places they have signs for people about gathering place. So they say, okay, in case something happens, they give a direction and say that that could be your gathering place. So again, do we have that kind of system in Richmond, or, are we planning to have that kind of system in Richmond, telling people in case something happens and you need to have a shelter or whatever, that would be the gathering place?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, we currently do not use that as a response model. We're reviewing that. However, right now, it's our professional opinion that for us to pre-plan what facilities may or may not be viable after an emergency isn't the best practice. If I make a statement today to direct everybody to go to City Hall, 9 times out of 10, that would work. But on that 10th time out of 10 and it doesn't work, everybody may already be moving towards City Hall and that wouldn't be the best place for them to gather. And so we want to use the first 72 hours. We'll communicate with everybody appropriately, tell them what is happening, give them some direction. It may very well be to move to a certain location and we'll assist with that, or it may be to stay where they are and we'll come and get you. After that 72 hours, we'll have a much better idea about what is viable, what structures can be livened up with power, shelter, warmth, food, et cetera, and then we can start providing those resources in those areas and then direct and bring people to them.
Okay. Well, I think one issue that we haven't touched on, and perhaps, we should talk about it further in the future, is about the equity. So right now, we're talking about people making, preparing for the disaster that could happen. But for people who don't have the means, the homeless or the low-income people, the equity issue is there, so how could they have the means to get themselves prepared or, get the supplies that they need? But I think this could be another topic for another day. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think it's a reminder to all of us that, perhaps when we're checking our batteries, we should be updating our kit, or maybe this creates an opportunity to talk about, how we put two things together, the shake it out test that everybody does, and then top up your kits, because your kids grow, their shoe sizes change, the things that you're setting aside or using as their old clothes, sometimes they don't fit, things like that. I think you want to be prepared for these things. Probably the most important thing that I've heard here, though, is needing fresh water for 72 hours. So figuring out what that is for your family and making sure you have that. Because, while your kit may be old, you may, if you're pretty hungry after 3 days, you may just eat whatever's in your kit. But if you're dying of thirst, that's a bigger issue, and clean water is probably your number one thing, and everything else supports that. And, people should not be letting their prescriptions run completely out, so that they have 5 days of prescriptions ideally, so that if something happens, people are covered, because your chances of getting more or getting ferried off the island or any other thing, chances are you're staying in place, is my understanding. On any given shift, I think there's 30 firefighters. So if some major buildings go down, probably those 30 firefighters are not going and getting people out of those buildings. So, and a major incident, things are happening. But we have had a pandemic, and it was completely different. And whether you stockpiled water or not, it was neither here nor there. And here we all are. Most of us seem to have made it through it. So, there have been some major incidents that have happened. Some tend to be a little more localized than others, but I think in general, it's a quite wide range of things we're looking at here. The big one, there's all kinds of range of what that might look like, but probably your number one thing is to have water and figure out who in your neighborhood has chainsaws, shovels, generators, and that kind of stuff. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now for the fun stuff. Community bylaws, monthly activity report. Mr. Corrado. Why, you got a date?
To the chair, I have nothing further to add, and I'm open to questions.
Councillor Wolf?
Thank you, Chair. My question is about the soil activity. It's on CS 12. There's 4 new ones added to stop work order. I'm familiar with all these properties. I go past them frequently. I'm just curious, the 2 middle ones, Westminster Highway, and then the 2 in Moncton Junction, There are two of like those really large mansions that get built on agricultural land. I'm curious, is there like still an ongoing pattern of stop work orders issued to those types of properties? And if there is something common or a trend, what is it? And then that last one on Fedoric, just looking at the overhead picture of it, they've cleared the whole back property. So I'm sure that's related to this stop work order. And do you have any more intel on what is going on there? Thanks.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, it's standard procedure once that it's been established that there's been unpermitted deposition of soil that a stop work order is issued. So that isn't an unusual pattern. And predominantly, most of these incidents occur in the ALR. As these are investigations that are still ongoing, we're not at liberty to elaborate further in an open meeting, but we can provide some information in a closed format.
Thank you. Councillor Day?
Thank you so much. And so I've sent you quite a few emails lately from the public regarding mostly homeless and tents. And I just want to say it seems like we're staying on top of it better this year than we have in the past. Do you have any comments about that?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, staff have increased the number of proactive patrols. At the same time, there's been a slight decrease in the overall calls for service regarding homelessness. I would say not all calls are the same. So just looking at quantity is one aspect. Certainly, we're not seeing the same congregations or scales of types of, for example, the incident that we had on a number of RVs on Vulcan Way. We have not seen anything of that scale. So both quantitatively and qualitatively, it appears there's a downward trend in those types of calls for service.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Move recommend. Second? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. Second business license activity report, Mr. Corrado.
To the chair, I have nothing further to add, and I'm open to questions.
All in favor? Thank you. We're passed. Richmond Fire Rescue Monthly Activity Report. Chief?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have nothing to add to my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Second, all in favor? Thank you. Any briefing?
I don't have a briefing update today. Thank you.
Nothing exciting? What?
I thought we just had the excitement.
Okay, RCMP Monthly Activity Report. Superintendent Dohar.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Nothing to add. Ready for questions?
Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for the report. Very easy to read and understand. On page 38, it states that under mental health that there was one person responsible for 29 incidents. Can you elaborate? How can we deal with this person once and for all? Obviously, they need more help.
Yes, Councillor Day, through the chair, Councillor Day, yes, we do. So what our members do, we have a collective approach with this person where we actually multiple units within our detachment as well as their providers. And collectively, we work in order to get the best outcome of it. So depending what the situation is.
Is this the type of person that might be a good candidate for secure care, so involuntary?
Perhaps.
Okay, I'll leave it there. My next question is on sexual offenses. There was a 41% increase, and it is above the average. That's concerning to me. Is there a possibility that the RCMP could put out a press release to show people how to protect themselves so they don't get in a vulnerable situation?
Madam Chair, through Councillor Day, no, the opposite. Councillor Day, through the chair, sorry. Yes, definitely we could. When we do normally provide information to the public, we normally have it, we try to make it very specific to specific things. Normally they're done for, like I said, a specific thing, not to alarm the people, but to inform them. In these particular circumstances, There wouldn't be anything to inform the public, but I can see that we can actually have, there's pointing out to other maybe community organizations that has, that can provide safety, for instance, for anyone. But it would be very hard for us in these circumstances just to actually inform certain members of the public in regards to sexual assault.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, this isn't a citywide problem. It's probably more localized to a specific group or category of people.
Correct. So these, in these circumstances here, 38% of these are actually sexual assault, none of which are from serial person or unknown person.
Okay, so what they need is the services, i.e. counseling, connection to organizations that can help them
Correct.
get out of the situation that they're in. I guess because we heard about the two young girls on the bus in Vancouver, I think it was, that were, attacked by that fella. And that's not what we're talking about here, though. We're talking about situations where they know the people that are, it's not random.
That's correct. Yes, not random.
Well, that's good to know, but still sad. Thank you.
Don't move in with each other. Councillor Heed.
Yes, thank you. A couple of things. Mr. Warzel, he put together a great report last time when we're talking about some of the street disorder here in the city. And I know it's resource intensive, and I'm hoping that, I think we're giving you 6 more police officers and 2 more civilian staff that will be able to actually get more on that. So from an anecdotal perspective, where are we on the street disorders? Where are we on the homeless issue? Where are we on the drug issue? The complaints that are coming into you. Julie, do you know anything? It would be good to get a sense, because I was surprised that now one of our counselors cares about homeless when there's an earthquake. I didn't think he cared about homeless, but where are we on this situation?
Our numbers are pretty good in regards to just homeless or the crime that actually is associated.
Any
to
of
all
the street
it.
disorder,
Go ahead.
combination of them.
A combination of it. We are doing good in a community of Richmond compared to many other community within the Lower Mainland. Do we have any concerns or any issues within our community? Yes, we do. Do we have the handle on it? I think we're doing a pretty good job, but can we do more? Probably, but we're in good hands, I would say.
We're in great hands, I would say.
Thank you.
But from the officer perspective on the street, is it an alarming rate? Is it decreasing? Is it increasing? Have we stabilized what the problem is with all the resources, or like your Fox cars and all of those, the mental health cars and that? Are we making some progress, from the street level?
So I would say it's consistent. So when you talk about the Yankee 30 and the Fox 80 program, these are programs that were pilot projects to which we utilize members within our front line that has not been normalized yet. And we have to increase these services in order to provide more service within. We all know that the mental health is something that constantly increases. There's more demand on our members in regards to the type of file. Sometimes they don't invite criminal charges necessarily, but these people require the attendance of police officer to go and mitigate what is either about to be committed or has been committed. So there's a lot more services that is not able to be provided by the police in order to get better.
So we all know the visuals of what's occurring with some of the problems in Vancouver. Absolutely horrendous. We're not anywhere near that in Richmond.
No, I really want to make sure we do not I don't want to cause some alarming within our community or alarm people. We do not see the amount of violence or the amount of people running around like we have observed in the media in Vancouver. Richmond is not that kind of city at this time.
Thank you.
Second, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you. And, hold on, RCMP briefing. Do you have anything else you want to tell us?
No, nothing to add.
problems, questions, concerns? Okay, thank you. Merry Christmas. Managers report? Move adjourned, we are adjourned. Did we have to close? No, we did not. Thank you.